One of the problems I've had with my new book, Dirty Reader, is that it's pornographic. I mean, sure, it's 70 to 80-year-old pornography, but that kind of doesn't really matter much. I'll show you the book itself on the screen. It really is another doorstop like Laughs and Jugs. And I'm going to also show you some of the process. Now, I've sped it up about 300%, as scanning each page takes about 30 seconds each, more or less. That's about 5 hours of continuous scanning. That is, if everything went smoothly, and it doesn't. I've had to blur out some of the video here for obvious reasons. Displaying the illustrations contained in these booklets would be against the terms of service in YouTube and possibly get my account suspended. Anyway, once the scanning is completed, I have to then go rotate and crop every single page, and it takes about as much time as the scanning. Once I have the near 600 scans cropped and aligned, then I need to adjust the contrast for each image so that it will print solidly in the book. I'm able to automate this to some degree, but I do need to go back over the pages and look for wayward noise that I can delete, etc. From here, I'm just going to read the description that I've written to elaborate on the contents. Well, since I wrote it, and why reinvent the wheel? In the Dirty Reader, you will find some of the worst erotic writing, coupled with the editing of someone who has to have been illiterate, illustrated by the lousiest photography and printed in the cheapest manner possible to be sold from under the counter and hidden away or tossed out with little ceremony. This describes the production, distribution, and consumption of what have only been known as readers, and very little is known apart from that. Published randomly around the 1930s and 40s, though dating them with any precision is impossible. They had exorbitant prices listed on the covers, along with claims to have been from remote locales and fanciful-sounding publishing houses. Increasingly rare, these original booklets will fetch a pretty penny. But after years of collecting, this volume of almost 600 pages presents the facsimile contents of 15 of these ridiculous, funny, sometimes offensive, and even occasionally titillating booklets. Now, we can just look at one booklet contained in the collection, and we'll be able to illustrate the preceding paragraph quite nicely. We'll take Lady Lansdale, for instance. Once you open the cover, you'll find a story called The Passionate Miss Ames. And if you read long enough, you'll realize that there is absolutely no connection whatsoever to the titular Lansdale mentioned on the cover. You'll also quickly discover that whomever typeset the book only seemed to have a vague understanding of the English language, and was most certainly being told the words he needed to be set, rather than looking at some sort of written master copy. Now, this is purely speculative on my part, but if you can imagine a scenario that would explain the following, please elaborate on the comments. Let me read from the first page of this booklet. The Passionate Miss Ames. The Rama planted a kiss on her ruby lips and guided her hand under his robe and placed it on his huge shaft. See, now, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Shaft is not an English word. Although there are some entries in the Urban Dictionary, we know they're referring to a shaft here. Also, did he really plan a kiss? Nevertheless, I will continue, and I will try to get through this as straight as possible. Undoing the buttons that held it prisoner, it leapt forth, its round head gleaming in the dim light. She struck it tenderly and squeezed it till in responded jerking and throbbing. Lowering her face, she passed her moist, clinging lops over its circumference. The Rama slipped his hand under the short skirt and titillated her seat pleasure. The Rama found her wet all over, and the sticky fluid covered her from belly to knees. He carried her to the bedroom, threw her upon the bed on her belie, and mounted her back. Seizing his big tool, he slapped it between those two wonderful cheeks and held her tight. Struggling in a frenzy, she endeavoring to squirm from beneath his and beg her, "Not there, Rama, please."